welcome back to Inside Number 23, my channel which is all about knitting and sewing and generally living the craftiest life possible. My name is Katie and you can find me pretty much anywhere on social media as misslavelli, although I am most active on Instagram. We also have a Ravelry group for the podcast, which is where you can find kind of show notes with lots of magic links in them to various projects and patterns that I mention in the podcast, and that's also where you can get involved in things like giveaways and cals that I might be hosting on the podcast. If you do want to get in touch with me, however, the very best way and easiest way to do that is via my email address, which is katie@insidenumber23.com. so any questions or queries regarding the podcast, please get in touch with me there. But otherwise, I'm coming to you as always from Hertfordshire, which is just north of London in the UK, where I live with my husband Emrys, our lovely pug puppy Rolly, and it is a grey day today. As is kind of common for this time of year, it's pretty grey, and although that's a little bit depressing, it actually makes for really good podcast lighting, so let's get on with it, shall we? Speaking of cals, I'm currently hosting just one cal on the podcast. It is the Harry Potter cal. It's a year-long knit-along for which I draw prizes at the end of each month. For any details on that, please do head for the Ravelry group. I do have a specific video all about the Harry Potter cal and what you need to do in order to get involved, and thank you so much to everybody who's got involved so far. I always love seeing all of your beautiful finished objects, and having a little bit of crafty Harry Potterness in your life is always going to be a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I do have a little bit of corrections corner before we get started this week. If you're a fan of the My Favourite Murder podcast, which I always go on about because I love it, you'll know that they have corrections corner at the beginning of their episodes, so I totally pinched this from them. But basically, on last week's episode, I shared with you in my Owl Post segment that I'd received the most beautiful parcel from lovely Lynn. Just to jog your memory, she sent me a couple of things, including this incredible project bag. Look at it. Look at the cross-stitchness of Harry Potter. It is beautiful. It's a lovely size and I love it. But I completely forgot to mention her shop details in that inclusion in the Owl Post thread. I corrected this in my show notes. I did add her details to the show notes, but just in case you are interested, Lynn has just set up an Etsy shop. It is called Stitching Fairy Crafts on Etsy. So do go and check her out and take a look at her beautiful project bags. They are gorgeous. I love this bag. If you want to kind of find out more about her cross-stitching in general, she also has a blog and it's called Happiness is Cross Stitching. And again, I will put all of the information in my show notes just down below. So do go and check her out and show her some love because she's awesome. And again, thank you so much, Lynn, for your beautiful parcel. In terms of what's been going on this week, I did have a little kind of 48-hour bout of sickness. I'm not entirely sure what happened, but I was quite unwell, which basically meant that a lot of videos on this channel have taken a bit of a hiatus. I have been doing a kind of, it's gonna be May, daily vlogging over May, but you will have noticed that a couple of videos are missing and I haven't updated in the last few days. Basically, it's no fun at all to record yourself being ill when you're ill, so I didn't do any filming. I will probably be picking up the It's Gonna Be May videos for the end of the month, depending on how I feel, because it's been quite nice to have a couple of days of just silence and not having to worry about uploading things, but I do really enjoy it, so we'll see. I'm not promising anything, but hopefully within the next couple of days there will be some more daily vlogs just to kind of get you through till the end of May. So thank you for your patience, I appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who sent me well wishes on Instagram. Again, it was very kind of you, and as you can see, I'm feeling a whole load better now. So with all of that to one side, I think it's about time that we move on to our first segment, which is of course, what am I wearing? And it wouldn't be May without a me-made outfit, would it? Even in my sickness, I have been wearing at least one me-made outfit, one me-made item rather, every day, but now I'm feeling better. I get the fun experience of kind of dressing up in all of my me-made bits and pieces again, and today is no exception. I'm wearing two items of clothing that I have made today. They are both patterns from Tilly and the Buttons. The first is my Agnes top. It's a super simple, short-sleeved t-shirt in this lovely stripy jersey fabric. I wear this all the time, and I always say that I want to make about 100 versions of this top. The Agnes top is just amazing. If you want a knit top pattern, you should really get it. But I'm wearing that, but I'm also wearing my Cleo dress, which I'm just going to stand up briefly to show you. This is the Cleo dress, and yes, it's very awkward to try and show this to you on the podcast because of the kind of angle that I'm sitting at, but the Cleo is just a dungaree dress. I put a pocket on the front. You can change it to have pockets kind of either on the bottom at the front or on your bum. I did the mini dress version of this. This is a very recent make. This is one of the 4 projects that I have made that I want to make during May. For Me Made May. This is one of the new ones, and I really love it. Again, I want to make 100 of these. Every time I make a Tilly and the Buttons pattern, I always say, I need 100 billion more of this, but in the same vein, I don't necessarily just like making the same pattern again and again and again and again, which is why it's quite nice actually working from Tilly's patterns, because she has such an incredible variety that I could literally just kind of do some form of rotation, like one Agnes top, one Cleo dress, one Coco dress, and just keep doing that until I just have a whole wardrobe of those. I think that would make me pretty happy. But yes, that is what I am wearing today for Me Made May. My next segment this week is once more going to be a little bit of owl post. Yes, the little owls have brought me some lovely bits and pieces this week. I've been incredibly lucky, and I'm really excited to share both of the little parcels that I received this week with you. First up is a parcel that almost didn't make it to me because of complications with the post office and customs. Entirely the fault of the customs people, to be honest, because they'd incorrectly read the information that had been very clearly labelled on the parcel and were going to charge me an exorbitant amount of money in order for it to get to me. However, after many weeks of negotiation, the parcel has finally found its way to me, and I'm very excited about it because it is just lovely. I was contacted by lovely Sarah of Bijou Garden Gifts, and she wanted to send us something for the Harry Potter cow. And if you've checked out her shop, and I will include the details down below, she just makes the most beautiful things, honestly. And so, of course, I said we would be more than happy to have some of her lovely bits and pieces included for the Harry Potter cow. And she very generously sent us across 2 sets of stitch markers and progress keepers, all Harry Potter themed. This is the first set, if you can see, and there is a little Deathly Hallows symbol, a little cup. There's even a little flying key in there, which is amazing. And this one, beautiful as it is a little golden snitch. It is stunning. This is the second set, which I think is Gryffindor themed because of all of the little red beads, and there's a lion in there. But again, there's a little golden snitch progress keeper. There's a stag in there, an owl in there, and they are beautiful. Really nicely packaged, really well thought out. I just think that they're gorgeous, and thank you so much, Sarah, for sending these through. These are going to make an incredible addition to the prizes for the Harry Potter cow. But in addition to that, she also sneakily sent something for me, which was incredibly appreciated, although unexpected. And it is a skein of her hand-dyed yarn. And I am going to butcher this name because I think the name is Gerber Daisy, because I think that that's a G, and it's this beautiful peachy orange colour, which is gorgeous. She specifically said she thought of me because she knows about my love of orange, which is so true. I'm going through a very orange phase in my knitting life right now. But also included, if you can see just on the top there, is one of the little snitch progress keepers, which I am so excited to have. I've wanted one of these for the longest time, and I know that I'm going to use it all the time. So thank you, Sarah. And how cute is her little label? Isn't that adorable? I love it. Thank you so much, Sarah, and I'm just thrilled that it finally found its way to me. The next parcel that arrived via Owl Post is something really special and very near and dear to my heart. You may remember a little while ago I was sent a beautiful parcel by Caris of Misty Mountain Maid. She sent me the most beautiful project bag which was Hufflepuff themed, and to this day it is one of my favourite project bags that I own. I love it so much, and it always sits by my bedside because it's just so special, and I like to have it out so I can see it on a regular basis. It's beautiful. But the thing that Caris really specialises in is adding really beautiful embroidery to her project bags, and I just think they're amazing. A little while ago, I was catching up with my lovely, lovely, beautiful friend Gabby of the Once Upon a Corgi podcast. She was showing off a couple of things that had arrived for a cow that she was hosting. And she showed another bag made by Caris, and lo and behold, it had a little corgi embroidered on it. And I just about lost my mind. I thought this was the cutest thing that I had ever seen. And so what do you do in that kind of a situation? Of course, you contact Caris and you ask if there's a possibility to get a pug version of this project bag. Because as you'll know if you're a long-term viewer, I have the most beautiful pug in the world, entirely my opinion, but to me he is the most beautiful pug in the world, Rolly, and he is the light of my life, and the idea of having a little embroidered pug on one of Caris's beautiful project bags just made me ridiculously happy. So we had a little bit of messaging back and forth to work out the style and the design and the colour of the bag, and I'm happy to say that it arrived this week. And I can't even tell you how amazing it is, so I'm just going to show you. Look at his little face! Oh, this is so clever. I mean, look at him. He even has the little kind of puggy crossed eyes and the little donut tail. It's gorgeous. I'm so happy with this. I can't even tell you. The fabric is beautiful as well. We kind of went for this kind of, it's almost a mauve, I would think. So Kristen, you would love this colour. It's kind of dark mauve. It's like a purpley, brown, pink kind of colour, and I love it because this is totally my kind of colour. And the inside is this glorious floral print, if you can see that there. It's gorgeous and I love it. I love the shape of these bags. I've never seen any other projects bags made in this shape. Oh, and that's the label, the Misty Mountain Maid. Isn't it amazing? And I love it. I'm obsessed with it. In addition to that, Caris also sent me a little lavender pouch with a K embroidered on it. And the detailing on this, you guys, look at that. Can you handle this? You can't handle this. I really can't deal with how beautiful this is and how special this is, and I'm so happy to have it. I mean, I'm gushing, aren't I? I'm really gushing, but it's beautiful. But if that were not enough, she also included a little something for you guys for the Harry Potter cow. It's Hogwarts! Look at it, it's Hogwarts! So it's a silhouette of Hogwarts on a zipper bag. It's a really lovely size. The reason that I really, really love this is that it's Harry Potter themed, but it isn't really in your face. It's just subtle, and if you know what it is, then you'll be like, aha, that's Hogwarts. But if you didn't, you would just think it was a beautiful, beautiful bag. And guys, go and check out Misty Mountain Maid, the Etsy shop. I will of course include links for it down below. In terms of my bag, my pug bag, it was a custom order. I did contact Caris directly. I'm not sure if it's something that she does all the time, whether she was just doing me a really, really big favour, but obviously message her if that's something that you're interested in, and see if she has the time available, because she's a very, very busy lady. But I mean, if you just check out some of the things that she has in her shop as standard, you're going to lose your mind. She does Disney character inspired bags. I know that she had a lumpy space princess bag in her shop not so long ago. What she does is just very, very special, and I think she's incredible. And yeah, go and check her out. Little pug win. So cute. I literally need to gather myself a little bit after looking at that bag, because it just drives me mad with how cute it is, genuinely. But moving on, I think it's about time that I shared a bit of knitting goodness with you. So it's time for What's on My Needles? And I'm happy to say that I've actually made a little bit of progress on a couple of projects this week. My real kind of focus over this last week has been on sewing. I am in an incredible sewing kick, which is actually really good because I've got a major bout of startitis right now. All I want to do is start new projects. And as I kind of talked about a few episodes ago, I currently have so many knitting projects on the needles that it's getting ridiculous. And so even though I am dying to cast on about 3 different new sweater projects, I am putting all of that starting energy into my sewing projects because obviously it's a lot less time consuming to start and finish a sewing project than it is a knitting project. But whilst I'm kind of channeling all of my startitis energy into sewing, which I will talk about a little bit later, I have been kind of plugging away on some of my long-term knitting projects. So I have 3 different things to share with you this week. No finished objects, but fingers crossed soon I will have some more because I am being relatively monogamous, or at least I'm only working on 3 projects as opposed to like 7. But first up are my Scorpious socks. Now these are living in my lovely Harry Potter project bag from Nomadic Yarns, which I adore, but I have put quite a bit of work into these socks this week. I believe the last time that I showed these to you, I had separated the socks and I was working on the heels. Well now, this is how much I have. So they're back on the needle together. I'm working on these 2 at a time because yes, it does take me a little bit longer to finish a pair of 2 at a time socks, or at least it feels a little bit longer, but when they're done, they're both done, and that's just so satisfying. But this pattern, you can see I've put the heels in. There they are. I've done the whole leg, and now I'm just working on the foot. So I don't actually have a huge amount more to do. I reckon a couple of evenings of TV knitting working on these, and they will be done. But let me just show you the pattern on these. It creates the most incredible cables. It's beautiful. This is a paid for pattern. I always call it the Sigh Never pattern, but I probably mispronounced that, but I love it. And in this colour, I just think it's gorgeous. This is a Kate Celine colourway. It is Emerald City, and yeah, I just love them. These are one for my Harry Potter cal for myself. I'm trying to knit as many Harry Potter themed projects this year kind of alongside my own cal as I can. These are based on Scorpious from Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, who is my favourite of all the Slytherins. I have done quite a bit of work on these. As you can see, they will be finished soon, and that just makes me really, really happy because when it comes to Sock Mojo, I haven't had a huge amount of it recently, so to get a sock project off the needles, this will mean that the only socks that I have to finish are putting the heels into Emrys's socks, which I still haven't done, and working on another pair of socks that I have on the needles, and then all socks will be cast off. The next project I've been working on is another Harry Potter themed one, living in another fandom bag, my Doctor Who bag from Addicted to Sock Knitting, and this is of course my Hufflepuff Pride cardigan. In terms of garment knitting, all of my time has been going onto this cardigan in the last week or so. I do have a lot of garments on the needles in addition to this one, and I'm trying to be monogamous in terms of my garment knitting to try and get some things finished because I have so many whips, it's not even funny. But I have done quite a bit of work on this. When I last shared it with you, I was still working on the, just going backwards and forwards in stockinette stitch on the entirety of the cardigan. It is knit from the bottom up, pretty much in one piece until you start separating for the sleeves. This pattern is the Trolley Dodger pattern, by the way, and it's a paid for pattern available through the Knit Picks website. But let me show you how much I've done, and when I look at this, I'm genuinely quite overwhelmed with how much I've done. It's humongous. There's a pocket, there's a bit here, this bit here, and this bit. I mean, that's so much stockinette. Look at it. It's huge. I could use it as a blanket. That's how big it is. It's ridiculous. But I have, as you can probably tell, got to the point where I've divided for the sleeves. At this point, I've finished the left front. I've started... I just desperately don't want to pull my stitches off my needle, so I'm trying to be really careful. Yes, here we go. I've started knitting on the back piece, and I still have the right front rather on my needles. I'm really, really happy now that, particularly now that I've started dividing up the body, because once I have finished these, I then basically just need to knit the sleeves and it's done, and the sleeves will fly, I'm pretty sure. And I really love how this feels. It's created a really, really beautiful fabric. This is Knit Picks Capra yarn. So it is a merino cashmere blend. It's a DK weight. This is the turmeric colour, which is this lovely mustard, and I also use the black colour for the little trim. There will be a trim around the pockets, around the neckline, and a little bit of colour work on the sleeves as well. So yeah. It does still feel like a bit of a knitting black hole, I'm not going to lie, because, I mean, you've seen the size of it. That was a lot of plain stockinette stitch. And it's a big project. There's a lot of stitches on here, and I am getting to the point where it does feel more of a trial to knit on this than anything else. It's just row after row after row of, dare I say, boring knitting. But in the same way, it's great for TV knitting, it's great for mindless knitting, and considering that the majority of my mental energy has been going on my sewing projects recently, it's not too much of a bind to be working on this. However, I do think once this is finished, I am going to need something a little bit more challenging to keep me engaged. Because much as I love this, this is definitely a product knit right now. I'm desperate to have this finished because I know that I will wear it and wear it and wear it. I love the colour. I love that it is Hogwarts, Hufflepuff themed, but knitting on it is becoming a little bit trying. But I am enjoying it more now that I'm not just knitting on hundreds and hundreds of stitches at a time, because I'm working on each individual section. So that's definitely helped. And it does have my little badger progress keeper on it that was gifted to me by Amy, which I love. And yeah, I'm still loving the product, just not such a fan of the process. I have one more work in progress to share with you, and this one really is a bit of a blast from the past. It has not been shared on this podcast for a really long time, and to be perfectly honest, I haven't seen many of these popping up on any podcasts recently, or at least not the ones that I've been watching, which is really funny because there was a time when you literally couldn't move for these projects because everybody was doing them. So without further ado, what's the other project I've been working on this week? My Cozy Memories blanket. I cast on this blanket pretty much when I first started podcasting. I did start one and then I ripped it out, and then I started work on this one, and it's here! It has been kind of my favourite #1 project this week. For those of you who haven't seen this before, because I appreciate it's been a while since I've shown it on the podcast, I'm going to give you a quick look at how big it is. So in terms of the width, I have 12 squares. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I have worked so far 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 complete rows. So that's a lot of knitting. This is kind of how it is. This is so awkward. It's awkward. Ta-da! In terms of what I've been working on in the last couple of days, all of my energies have been going on this section here. This section at this side. By the way, for those of you who are interested in how I knit my Cozy Memories blanket, I do have a project page for it, and I've detailed on there exactly kind of what needles I use, which kind of cast on methods I use, which decrease that I use, and yeah, that's all there for your viewing pleasure if you have any questions or queries. I really couldn't tell you what some of these are now because I've completely forgotten, but these most recent 4 I do remember exactly what they are. So first of all, I added this beautiful dark blue sparkly, there's a lot of stellina in here in case you can't see. This was a Bilham yarn that I picked up at Unravel a year ago. It's not the one that just went, the one before. And it didn't have a colourway, but I used it for my exploration station shawl. Next to it is pumpkin spice latte. This was sent to me by lovely Kate, of hand dyed by Kate. And then next to that is one of my most cherished Nora George yarns. This is the toffee apple colourway, which I love, and I made my Mercury socks out of last year, and I love that one. The one that I added most recently is this little one at the top. This was purchased in New York at Vogue Knitting Live. This is Shirsty Cat, and it is her Candy Swirl colourway, and I'm loving it. One thing that I would say is you can see a lot of ends kind of hanging. Let me just show you. There are some ends hanging over. The reason I'm talking about ends is that the other problem that was preventing me from working on my Cozy Memories blanket was the amount of ends that I had to weave in. Basically the way that I was working was I would finish a row of these mitered squares. I would then go back and sew in the ends for that row. And that's frustrating because that's like 2 ends for every square. So for one row, that would be at least 24 different ends. And that's if I'm using just one mini skein for each square. And sometimes I kind of mix and match if I don't have enough yarn for a whole square. That was getting a little bit frustrating because I am not one of the people who enjoys weaving in ends. I don't understand people who enjoy weaving in ends. But now, what I have decided to do is that when I cast on a square, if I just show you the back here, I like the ends to not be sewn in before I have knit in the top square above it. So what I tend to do is these 2 ends here are linked to this square. Without weaving these in, it's easier for me to pick up these stitches along here to put another square in. So what I would do is knit in this square. Once that is done, I weave in these 2 ends at the corner of that square because that kind of bit is then completely finished and sealed off. So it basically means knit a square, weave in 2 ends, knit a square, weave in 2 ends, and do it like that. And I am finding that so much better because everything is happening in small amounts, and also I get the satisfaction of kind of really finishing that one particular section of the blanket as I go. So I'm not just working on something that has 100 billion ends, which irritates me. So there are quite a lot of ends on here at the moment from this completed row that I did, but as soon as the little square is added on top, those ends will get woven in. So it's like doing a little bit at a time, and I really, really, really like that. It would be typical that I start working on a blanket, a massive blanket, when the weather is starting to get a little bit warmer, and I probably won't want to cart this around, but I really, really want this to get finished. I think it will make a really lovely thing to be able to take out and have on the sofa, or maybe have in our guest bedroom as something. It's a really lovely project to just be a little bit creative and not necessarily have any patterns to follow. It's quite brainless, but at the same time it has a lot more variety than just knitting on, for example, my Hufflepuff cardigan, which is just one colour repeated throughout the entire thing. But there's so many memories in here of starting my podcast, of working on different projects throughout my podcast, of getting mini skeins from lovely, lovely people, and it's bringing me a lot of joy. And I can't wait for it to be finished so that I can snuggle up under it. And yeah, I'm just really, really happy with it. And maybe once this one's done, I can then start working on my crocheted granny stripe blanket, which is still just a little crochet tape bottom because I haven't really worked on it since I last showed it to you. But yeah, might be a good idea to get at least one blanket off the needles. Plus I love rolling it up. How squidgy and gorgeous and yarny does that look? I love it. Yay, yarny goodness is so good. Yarn is making me happy. But as I said, my real focus and my heart of hearts has definitely been on sewing this last week. I am so inspired, no pun intended, when it comes to my sewing projects. After visiting Ray Stitch last week with lovely Nikki and Amy, there are so many patterns that I want to buy. I'm literally having to kind of sit on my hands when it comes to ordering things online, because I want to order a huge amount of fabric, I want to order new dress patterns, I want to order notions and amazing things, because the sewing love has reignited within me, and I'm just in utter joy right now regarding my sewing, which is a wonderful place to be. But basically our next segment is going to be So What? And I have a finished object. I know, I can't believe it. I'm really, really happy and a little bit hysterical, to be honest, about this sewing pattern and this sewing project. It is a pattern that I picked up last week. If you've been watching some of my It's Gonna Be May videos, you'll realise that I picked up a couple of new patterns whilst at Ray Stitch, and I just love them. I love them. And one of them was Calling My Name, in particular because I knew that it would be perfect for some fabric that I'd had in my stash for a very, very long time. It's one of the oldest reigning members of my fabric stash. But the pattern is this lovely little number. This is the version that I'm making, but this is the Carolyn pattern. It's by Closet Case Patterns, and this is the first time I've ever used a closet case pattern. It's pyjamas. You have a couple of different variations. You have the short sleeved in the shorts. You then have the long sleeved with the long sleeve trousers. And you also have the option to kind of customize them a little bit more by adding piping detail and that type of thing. But basically the ones that I wanted to make are these, the shorty version, so the little shorts and the short sleeved top. And I've always loved pyjamas. I have so many sets of pyjamas, it's kind of ridiculous. Emirates used to buy me a lot of pyjamas and I love living in them. When I'm at home, more often than not, the second that I get through the door, I will put on a pair of pyjamas and just snuggle up and just lounge. But I don't have any me-made pyjamas at all. It's all shop bought, ready to wear kind of things. And I am getting to the point now where I would love to be able to have made everything that's in my wardrobe. For now, I thought it was a good time to start making pyjamas. And I do have a finished object. It's not both sets of the pyjamas yet, it's only one part, but I'm so happy with it. I'm just looking at it here and I feel a bit foolish because I don't know if anyone else will be as excited about these as I am, but I made the shorts this week and they're amazing. Look at my space pants. Oh my goodness. So this fabric, I've shared this fabric with you before on the podcast, but I've had it for the longest time. It's these little space kids and I think that they're ridiculous and amazing and I love them. And I can't tell you how happy these shorts make me. I mean, you can probably tell from my face. I don't think I've ever been this enthused on the podcast about anything. I told you it was mild hysteria because as soon as I bring these out, I just kind of lose my mind a little bit, but here they are. Let me show you a couple of the details. One of the lovely things about this pattern, it has pockets. Look at that. So there's a little pocket detailing in here. It also has a faux fly detail on the front, which is kind of sewn up here. It's a little difficult to see because obviously the pattern is super busy, but there's a little faux fly detail there. These have little cuffs on them, and I did make piping to go in them. So as you can see, I have red piping in my space pants, and I love them. I'm obsessed. I'm utterly obsessed with these. I had to run out the other day to get a bit of elastic to put in them, but they are the most comfy, amazing shorts in the world. And I love them and I can't wait to have a matching shirt. The shirt is a little bit more involved in terms of the construction because it has a little bit more detailing and stuff, but these make me so happy. In terms of the pattern, I really, really enjoyed using it. It's not something that I would recommend for a beginner sewist. The reason that I say this is the way that the instructions are kind of laid out. I'm going to show you from a distance so you can't really see, but can you see how this is doubly spaced? That's a lot of instructions over a double page spread. And the reason that this is done, I think, is probably because there's a lot of information in here, and by kind of squeezing it in for the double spread obviously saves on printing, which makes it a little bit more cost effective to print it like this. Otherwise, this little booklet, the instruction booklet, would be double the size. I think that it is, when you sit down and read it and you have a little bit of a knowledge about how to read sewing patterns and you've sewn similar things in the past, it is simple to understand exactly what they want. If this is the first time that you're sewing something, I think it would probably come across as a little bit overwhelming. I think it would come across as a little bit intimidating if you haven't sewn many projects before. However, if you do have a little bit of sewing experience, in particular, you've maybe sewn a garment or two, I think it's a wonderful pattern to work with. In terms of the sizing is incredible. I did have to do a little bit of finagling with the pattern, mostly because my hips are considerably larger than my waist, which basically means in more commercial sizing, which this is, I do come up between, I think that there was about 3 sizes difference between my waist size and my hip size. However, it's very simple to do a little bit of adapting of the pattern in order to coordinate that. But the lovely thing about these patterns is that they're super comfy, so you don't really have to worry too much about things being too kind of tight. But I love this. I love them. Aren't they just, I mean, I need to have a slumber party so that I can show these off. I really, really do. I want to make another pair. I want to make the long-legged, long-sleeved version for the winter. I'm gonna source some like flannel maybe in order to do that. But and in the meantime, cannot wait to cut out the shirt and get that done as well. So technically, this is a finished object. I'm counting this as 2 finished objects once it's done, because obviously one is the shorts and one is the top. So that will be me. This is me halfway through my Me Made May challenge, because I've now made 2 different things. Space pants. All I've been doing all week is singing the song Spaceman. I don't know if you guys remember that song. Spaceman. With the word space pants. I think I'm driving Emrys insane, but I find it really funny. I really need to put these down because I'm getting too excited. I told you, mild hysteria regarding my space pants, but yeah, I love them. I think it's time for a little bit of calm, a little bit of chill after the hysteria of my sewing segment. As you can tell, I am so into my sewing. It's not even funny, but I actually have something quite exciting to share with you next. I have a little review to share with you, so it is time for reviewing the situation. I was lucky enough a little while ago to be contacted by the lovely ladies of Stranded magazine again. I have previously reviewed 2 issues of their beautiful magazine, and let's start off by saying I am a massive fan of everything that they do with their magazine. I think that it is a very, very special publication. It's very unique, it's exciting, it's fresh, it's modern, and I just love it. So I was very, very, very happy when they got in touch with me again and asked if I would like to review their most recent issue, which is the warm weather edition for 2017. I was a little hesitant when this first arrived in my Ravelry inbox, mostly because when it comes to any form of knitting publication that's specifically designed for summertime, I automatically kind of switch off a little bit. I'm not a big fan of summer knitting projects. My real love of knitting is big squishy garments in heavier weight yarns. I've never really been the type of person who knits a lot of t-shirts and that type of thing, but I thought I've loved Stranded for such a long time with the other editions that they've done. Let's see what they do for kind of summer, springtime. And I was really pleasantly surprised. Honestly, it's probably the first time that I've looked at a knitting magazine designed for kind of the warmer months and actually seen a lot of things that I would like to work on myself. As always, there's more than just patterns in this magazine. Stranded always includes a really nice selection of articles on a variety of different topics, which I always find incredibly interesting. In this particular edition, there is a article all about natural dyeing. In particular, local colour fibre studios were interviewed all about their kind of process, how they built up their business. In addition to that, there's a lot of technique tutorials. They're always included in Stranded magazine, in particular for projects that are actually used in the magazine, which is really, really great. And the other thing that I loved was that there was an article all about colouring books for adults, which is actually something that I held off on for the longest time, but I have now purchased my own colouring book and I'm really enjoying kind of colouring that in the evenings. It's a nice kind of change from the other creative pursuits that I have. And that article is basically all about mental health and wellness and how doing something like this can actually be incredibly helpful for your mental health, which I really, really enjoyed. But let's be honest, the real reason that we buy a knitting magazine is for the patterns. So without further ado, let me talk you through the patterns that are included in this particular edition. The first pattern is called Le Beau. This is a crop top, which personally feels a little bit much for me. I don't think that I could see myself wearing this, but it's something that I could see a lot of my podcasting friends wearing. But yeah, it's a really, really lovely pattern. Again, something light, but it's still a garment, and I do think that it's beautiful. And as always, the photography and the styling of all of these projects is so on point and so gorgeous that you can't help but want to make the projects that are photographed. There are also two shawls included in the magazine. The first one is more of a rectangular, almost scarf-like shawl. It is called Batumi, and it's a lovely, lacy, gorgeous, like I said, kind of scarfy shaped shawl. I really liked this. This was quite different. It's almost a wrap more than a shawl, and I think it's really, really attractive. The other shawl is a little bit more delicate and small. It's triangular and it's called Terrainer. Again, I think this would make great kind of handbag knitting to just pop into your bag when you're heading to the beach, or you're heading to a barbecue, or you're heading to a park to hang out. And it's got a really nice kind of edge detailing on it. Both these shawl projects I think would be really satisfying. There's a little bit of thought involved in them, but not too much. And the end products are just really, really attractive. As always, they've included a sock pattern, which is one of my favourite patterns. I really, really love this because it's a pair of little shorty socks, and they are called Valtos, I believe. Lacy shorty socks, and I am very, very tempted to cast on a pair of these myself. I think that they are one of my favourite patterns that are included in the collection. There are two more patterns that both have a bit of a vintage edge, which I really, really appreciated because obviously that's my personal preference. One of them is a headscarf, which I think is genius. It was a very, very common thing in the 40s and the 50s in particular to knit these or crochet these smaller projects for bandanas and headscarves and hairnets, and this is such a lovely throwback to that, but it's also quite a unique shape, which I think looks lovely. The name is Fenor, I believe. And it's done in a beautiful red yarn, and I think that it is gorgeous. The other kind of more vintage feel is a sailor top, or at least it's inspired by the classic sailor top, and it's called Makira. It's a sleeveless, simple kind of shift top with a lovely bit of tie detail around the neckline, and it's just really cute. It's a little bit novelty, but I think for a summer project it would just make a really, really nice statement top to wear out. And again, the styling is gorgeous. It looks really, really, really lovely in the photos. With all honesty, the projects don't excite me as much as previous issues of the magazine, but that is literally just because, as I said, my personal preference when it comes to knitting are massive sweaters and really thick socks and scarves, and for a warm weather edition of a magazine, that was never going to be what was included here. But this is genuinely one of the first times that I've ever really wanted to knit some projects from something that isn't just thickly cabled sweaters. In particular, the sock pattern I really love. I think that this would be something that I would wear all the time, and I definitely would like to knit up a couple of pairs of these socks. And the headscarf I think is beautiful. So yeah, as always, I love Stranded magazine. I make no bones about the fact that I love Stranded magazine, but it takes a lot to sway me when it comes to kind of warm weather knitting, and they've done it, so congratulations guys. If me talking about this gorgeous magazine has made you want to get your hands on a copy for yourself, I have a little bit of good news for that, because I'm going to be doing a giveaway for this magazine. The lovely ladies of Stranded have very kindly donated a copy of this magazine to Inside number 23 for you gorgeous guys and girls who are watching. So I'm going to be opening up a giveaway thread in the Ravelry group, and I will be announcing a winner next week. I haven't thought of a prompt for it yet. I haven't thought of a question, but I will include that in the Ravelry group. So literally go on, head over, answer the prompt that I will put at the beginning of the thread, and it might be you next week who stands the chance of winning a copy of this gorgeous magazine. If you can't wait and you want to get hold of one right now, I'm happy to say that Stranded magazine has also been generous enough to give us a discount code in order to purchase this amazing magazine, and that will give you 15% off until June 3rd. So definitely get hold of a copy, whether you want to enter to win one or whether you want to buy one yourself. The code is inside23 WW 2017. So inside 23 WW 2017. I will include that somewhere on the screen. I'll include it in the show notes, and just get your hands on this magazine, you guys, because it's amazing. I love it. I think you're gonna love it. I think there's a lot to offer in every single edition of Stranded magazine, but this one really did impress me. So thank you guys for sending me a copy to review. I really appreciate it. And guys, head over to the Ravelry group and enter to win one for yourself. So that's about it in terms of knitting and sewing and all of that kind of content. But of course, it's the end of my podcast. What segment were we gonna have other than General Waffle? General Waffle. And you guys, I have something specific that I want to talk to you about this week. This is something that I feel has been bubbling up within me for quite some time. And I think it's about time that we address it right here on the podcast. For those of you who've been long-term viewers, you'll know that in the past I have talked about a lot of things regarding kind of body confidence, about my own body confidence and lack thereof, about how your body changes at different points of your life and how this can really affect you in terms of how you see yourself, in terms of making things for your new body shape. And over the past couple of weeks, like I said, all of my energy is going into my sewing and making garments and Me Made May, which involves wearing Me Made garments every day. And so of course, kind of naturally from that, I've been focusing a lot on my body over the last month since the beginning of May. I do not feel that I have the perfect body. I know in some ways I'm incredibly lucky. I'm not saying that I am horrendous, but as everybody does, I have some hang-ups about the way that I look. I have cellulite, I have stretch marks, I have scars, I have moles, I have wobbly bits, who doesn't? I'm about as far away from having a thigh gap as it possibly is to be. In fact, my thighs, I'm not gonna lie, they kind of get friendly while I'm walking. They're best friends, they hold hands. In a lot of ways, my body is, in my own opinion, far from perfect. And I know that that is something that is shared by pretty much everybody. In my own personal journey of how my body has changed, when I started college, where I was doing a musical theatre degree, which is incredibly exertive, it's very physical, you are at the peak of your physical fitness when you're doing this type of thing. I was around about 8 stone. I have put on, I believe, almost 2.5 to 3 stone since that point in my life. So my body has changed considerably over the last, just under a decade. And it is difficult to adjust to the fact that your body has changed, whether it's just that you've taken a different route in your life and you're not as active as you once were, or for many women, I know that after having children, when your body changes, that can be a really difficult thing to cope with emotionally because it is such an extreme change, or whether you've been unwell and that's caused your body to change. Changes in our body is something that happens to absolutely everybody, and it's kind of a part of life that we're not always going to be the way that we would want to be, or what is considered to be conventionally beautiful. And this is really where my main topic of my waffle comes in. This idea of what is conventionally accepted within the parameters of beautiful. Something that I've had to cope with for quite a long time, and I haven't necessarily brought it up because it's a difficult thing to bring up, is people thinking that they have the right to tell me what is acceptable for me to do with my own body. Whether that's to do with what I wear, with what I eat, with having tattoos. Nobody has the right to tell me or you or any of us what is acceptable for ourselves than us. Nobody has the right to tell you that by dressing a certain way, you are in some way less of a person. If you put on an outfit and you feel $1 million and you feel fantastic, then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If you know 100% that you feel beautiful, just because you may not fit into what someone else's perception of what beautiful is, that doesn't matter, because you know that you are happy as yourself, and in spite of your flaws, because of your flaws, because of your wobbly bits and cellulite and, rolls that hang out in various places, you still feel beautiful. Then it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's a little bit difficult because in this podcasting community, in the social network community, in the internet community in general, we do have this incredibly open area of conversation, which is incredible. I love the fact that I can share these things that I love with you, that I can share a little bit of myself, a little bit of my heart with you guys, and you give me back so much love and so much of your time, and that is incredible. But the fact of the matter is that when you put a bit of yourself out there on the internet, people start feeling that they have the right to feel that they know you more than they really do. And yes, we have a relationship. I'm so lucky to have an incredibly rich and wonderful relationship with you, my viewing audience. But the fact of the matter is, nobody has the right to tell me what I should feel comfortable wearing and what I should feel comfortable doing with my body, except me. Even my husband doesn't have the right to tell me that, and we've lived together for years and I love him and he is my soulmate and my best friend. If he started coming to me and saying, you shouldn't wear that because, it doesn't look right because you've got love handles, or, that's just, even if it were him saying it because he thought I would be embarrassed because I had a bit of fat roll hanging out, if I've decided that it's completely acceptable to have that fat roll hanging out, then guess what? Everyone else is going to have to live with it, because pretending that things like that don't exist is one of the things that can be the most unhealthy for you in terms of accepting your body as it is. I know I'm one of the biggest culprits of looking at my body and feeling inadequate. Seeing the fact that I have, when I'm sitting down right here, I have a little belly roll that's sitting there because I had breakfast and I had coffee, and yesterday I had cake, and I'm not the type of person who's just going to live off salad for the rest of my life in order to get a washboard stomach and a six-pack. That's just not where I live. And to pretend that I don't have those things, or to hide that I have those things for some bizarre sense of wanting to be accepted, when the entirety of the world is diverse and beautiful and varied, whether or not you are an extra small, tiny, petite beauty or a voluptuous 4XL beauty. We are all beautiful. The bodies that we live in are incredible things. At the very least, your body gets you out of bed in the morning. It supports you when you walk from place to place. We are so lucky to have these bodies. And yes, we should nourish them and we should love them and we should take care of them. But we should stop blaming them for being less than what is perceived as perfect. I mean, I am the worst person really to talk about this because I do have a lot of hang-ups when it comes to my body. I've talked before that I have a massive bum. I don't necessarily like the fact that I have a massive bum. I particularly don't like the fact that I have squidgy bits that I can kind of see poking out of various outfits when I wear them. I take multiple pictures for Instagram trying to hide the fact that sometimes I have a little belly after I've eaten a meal because I find it embarrassing, because it's in some way not okay that my body changes after I've eaten. And when we start going down this route, it's a dangerous route to go down, because this idea that we have to hide who we are to be considered beautiful, to be considered acceptable, is so wrong. And that's not the type of person that I want to be. That's not the type of attitude that I want to put out through this podcast with you guys. I want you to know, yes, there are things about my body that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis, but alongside that is an equally strong voice inside that says, why should you feel like this? Why is it okay for you to beat yourself up about these things? Who cares? Who cares if there's a little bit of extra pudge around your bra strap line when you're wearing a top? You know, there's a little bit of back fat there. That's because I'm enjoying life and occasionally indulging in naughty foods, but I'm in general very, very happy with the way that I live my life. We are all beautiful, no matter what size we are, no matter what anybody else says. And you know what? If you get those instances where people start thinking that they know better, just feel sorry for them, because that's what I do. Because if you're that image obsessed, if you are that programmed to thinking that beauty lies within a particular set of conventions, that's your problem. And unfortunately, I don't have any time for it. On that slightly intense note, I think I'm going to call it a day today. I hope that that hasn't put any of you off. As always, my general waffles are entirely my own opinions, and it's coming from a place of love and acceptance, and genuinely, every single one of you who watches this podcast, you are beautiful, and please don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. I hope you've enjoyed the video this week. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe if you want to be kept up to date as to when there are new videos on the channel. I hope you all have a glorious week filled with knitting and sewing and body positivity, and I'm sending you all the love, and I'll see you again really soon. Bye! Little blah 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 blah. Can't speak.